Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I am bringing you week 23 of my 2019 reads. This week was a pretty good reading week. I read 2 books, both of which I quite enjoyed. The first book I read this week was Coraline by Neil Gaiman, and this is a book that I have been meaning to read forever. I love Neil Gaiman, and this is one of the few books of his that I have not yet read. I have seen the movie years ago and loved it, so I just needed to pick up the book. This week I was very much in the mood for it, and so I picked it up and read it and really loved it. I mean, I loved this book. I think that Neil Gaiman's prose is so gorgeous. I think he has very lyrical ways of stringing together sentences. He has almost this dark fairy tale feel to his writing, and I absolutely love that style. My name, That's So Poe, is because I really love Poe's writing, and similarly, Poe has that very lyrical, beautiful, dark quality to his writing. So for me, Neil Gaiman often is kind of a modern equivalent to Edgar Allan Poe. So he really is one of my favorite authors, and Coraline really did not disappoint. I loved the story. The plot, if you don't know it, is that there's a little girl, Coraline, who is on summer vacation, and her parents they've moved into this new house, and it is kind of an old house that has a little bit of something strange going on. And she is bored. She has nothing to do. She's trying to play. And one day she discovers a door, and that door goes into sort of an alternate version of her house where there's an alternate version of her parents, and they're a lot more fun. They want to play and do cool things, but there's also something a little bit off about these other mother and other father parents. And so this story is so creepy, but creepy in a way that is very manageable for people like me who can't handle scary stories. And I think it would be perfect as well for the age group that it's intended for. It's very much a late elementary kind of age reader type of book. And the main character, Coraline, is fantastic. She is such a great 12-year-old or 13-year-old girl. She is bold, she is curious, she is intelligent, she is very much like go out and get 'em. And I love that in my characters when they're young girls. And I think that Neil Gaiman does such an excellent job of portraying a young girl, and that she's got all of these intelligent attributes, but also the way that she thinks about things, her style of logic is not adult, you know, and I really like that. It feels very real to me as somebody who's, you know, taught younger kids before. It feels like an appropriate way to portray a 12-year-old girl. So I loved this story. I thought it was just gorgeously written, great plot line, beautiful kind of fantastical dark fairy tale, excellent characters, and also a really nice set of themes, kind of what is family, what makes you feel loved and at home, and you know, what is fun versus what is boring versus what is good for you long term. A lot of fun, interesting themes are developed in this. So I gave it 5 out of 5, highly would recommend this. And if you haven't checked out the movie, you should check that out too, it's quite good. Next, I read Fire Song by Adam Garnet Jones, and this is the book that was on my June TBR for Queer Pride Month, so I will link that TBR list below. This is a story about a boy who is graduating high school, and he is Indigenous. He lives on a reservation, and he is dealing with a lot. I mean, a lot. His life is basically falling apart around him. So he lives on this reservation, and the reservation is a difficult place to live. You know, there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of difficulty with handling the pull between the traditional spiritual beliefs and way of life and this kind of more modern way of life and modern ambitions. In this, Shane, the main boy, is really struggling just to find his place and to figure out how to lead his life. He wants to get off the reservation and go to school and make something of himself, but he also feels so many ties to the reservation. He also is gay, and he's very much in the closet. It is not okay to be gay in his community, but he's in love with somebody. At the same time, he can't be open about that, and that causes a lot of friction. And just to make everything like really so much worse, he is dealing with the loss of his sister. So his younger sister committed suicide just a couple of months before the story takes place, and that has completely destroyed him and his mother. They are dealing with so much grief. So he's dealing with this grief, dealing with all of these emotions about being gay and being in love and not being able to talk about it, dealing also with so much pressure. He's graduating and he wants to go out to college, but his funding falls through and he just doesn't know what to do. So it feels like his entire life is just crumbling beneath his hands and he has no recourse. He has nothing that he can do. And those emotions are so intense. Adam Garnet Jones, I think this is his debut novel. He's actually a filmmaker and he wrote Fire Song originally as a screenplay and created a film, and I think it won a bunch of awards, and then he made a novelization out of it. And I am so impressed because I never would have thought that this was a debut novel. It has such beautiful writing. I mean, gorgeous. His writing is so lovely. I think I will definitely pick up other things by Jones. It's just lovely. The imagery is so intense. You feel completely moved by his words. So I really loved his writing. I think also just this insight into life on the reservation, because this is an own voices story. Adam Garnet Jones is Indigenous. He is gay, and I think that this probably really represents a lot of the kind of difficulties that he went through as a teenager. I don't know how much of it is really real. I don't think the whole thing is, you know, a memoir or anything like that, but its own voices. And you feel that earnestness and honesty, and you really understand that hopelessness of somebody stuck in that situation. So all of that I found absolutely wonderful. The plot line, though, was a little bit intense for me. I've mentioned this before, and I'm really coming to realize it's true. I don't love things that are too fast-paced. When things happen one after the other, after the other, after the other, it feels completely overwhelming for me, and I end up being pulled out of the story because it's too much. It feels like a soap opera or just kind of, you know, a Korean drama or something like that, where just, you know, a really awful event happens on top of another, on top of another. And I've heard this referred to as kind of like misery porn, where it's just, you're just watching all of these bad things happen to somebody. And that was a little bit too intense for me. I also felt like the storyline ramped up with all of these awful things happening to Shane. And then at the end, it had kind of a deus ex machina ending where it just resolved everything kind of nicely, just tied it up in a neat little bow. And also, through the plot line, it resolved some of Shane's internal struggles. And I would have preferred to have kind of, instead of having all of these plot developments and solution, I would have preferred to actually just see the internal development and struggle that Shane went through progress a little bit more slowly and a little bit more through character development than story development. So that part I wasn't as huge of a fan of, but the writing and the perspective and just the emotional draw and that own voice's beauty of representation, those were so strong in this novel that I still really, really liked it. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I really think this is worth picking up for anybody who hasn't read anything that's own voices by a native author. Okay, that wraps up my reading week. If anybody else has read these books, please let me know what you thought of them down in the comments below. Or if you've read anything else that's similar to these that you think I might enjoy, please let me know.